Okay. I want to run through the first of each of these problems with you just so to help you see how to do them. On this first page, we're going to be looking we're just predicting moles. And so we're just figuring out how many moles there are of each thing. So you can figure that out by looking at the equations, okay, the numbers in front of the element, the molecule. So the first problem says in the following reaction, if you begin with 5 moles of sodium cyanide, so that's here, how many moles of sodium sulfate might you produce from the reaction? Okay, so we have 5 moles, we're told we have 5 moles of sodium cyanide. We need to multiply that by whatever the conversion ratio is of moles to moles looking at our equation. So our moles of sodium cyanide will go on the bottom. If we look at the equation, there's 2 moles. So we put 2 moles of sodium cyanide. And for every 2 moles of sodium cyanide, there's 1 mole of sodium sulfate because there's no number in front of it, so that means 1. That's going to go on the bottom so that when we multiply this, our moles of sodium cyanide cancel out. So if you write it out, it can help you to know whether or not you have it written properly, because if you had the 2 moles of sodium cyanide on the top, then your moles of sodium cyanide are not going to cancel out, and it'd be actually moles of sodium cyanide squared divided by moles of sodium sulfate. So it just can help you to make sure that you have it right, because otherwise, instead of dividing by 2, you'd be multiplying by 2. So you'd end up with 10 moles instead of what the answer should be, which is 2.5 moles. Okay, so that's the final answer. That's all they're looking for. Now, if you go to the next page, the back side, they're asking you to predict grams. So this is going to be a little bit more involved, because first we're going to have to figure out how many moles, and then in order to figure out how many grams. So this is, I think actually the same equation. So we still have a 2-to-1 ratio here of our sodium cyanide to sodium sulfate, which is what we're dealing with. It says when hydrogen sulfate and sodium cyanide are mixed, hydrogen cyanide and sodium sulfate are produced. If you begin with 25 moles of sodium cyanide, how many grams of sodium sulfate? So instead of how many moles, we're figuring out how many grams. But first we have to figure out how many moles. This is still a 2-to-1 ratio, so we're still going to have our moles of sodium cyanide that we're starting with, which they tell us is 25 moles. And then we'll use our mole ratio. There's 1 mole of sodium sulfate for every 1 mole, or every 2 moles, sorry, of sodium cyanide. So, in the same way we did in the last one, we're going to be dividing by 2, because 2's on the bottom. We know we've got it right because our moles of sodium cyanide cancel out. So we end up with 12.5 moles of sodium sulfate that will be produced. But we're not looking for moles now, we're looking for grams. So we have to figure out how many grams are in 12.5 moles of sodium sulfate. So the first thing we need to do is figure out the molar mass of sodium sulfate, and I'm going to just work on that down here. So the molar mass of sodium is 22.99, and we'll multiply that by 2 because there's 2 sodiums. So that would be 45.98. Okay. Molar mass of sulfur, and you're getting this off your periodic table, is 32.06. These are grams per mole, but I'm not going to write that all out right now. 32.06. And then oxygen is 16. There are 4 of them, so we're going to multiply it by 4. So that will give us 64. And then if we add that all together, we would have 142.04 grams in each 1 mole of sodium sulfate. So up here we have 12.5 moles of sodium sulfate. We're going to multiply that by 142.04 grams, that's a 4, sorry, in each mole of sodium sulfate. So our moles of sodium sulfate will cancel. We'll end up with grams, which is what we're looking for. So in your calculator, you multiply 12.5 times 142.04, and you end up with 1,775 with some decimals after it, and then that's going to be grams of sodium sulfate. Okay, so you guys are going to do the remaining problems, attach the problems to this assignment. As far as the review questions, I was going to go over some of the commonly missed ones in class, but what I'd like you to do as you finish them up, as I return them to you, I am going to, on the assignment in the personal message area, I'm going to post a link to a video that shows you how to do all the problems so that you can look at your problems that you missed and just look at just the ones that you missed. The reason I'm not going to do it on here and I'm going to post that video is she's already got it formatted out where it tells you in advance like exactly where to find the different problems on the video. It gives you like the minutes so that you can just fast forward to the problems that you missed. So look at your form, see which problems you missed, find them on the video, watch how it's solved so you can see where you went wrong before you go on and take the test. And then the homework will be the test, and then we'll be moving on to chapter 8, hopefully in person, next week. All right, thank you.